So I wanted to take a couple of minutes today to talk about Dragon Ball Super and its inevitable return to television, right? Because even though the Dragon Ball community has just kind of been blowing up over the last couple of months about whether or not Dragon Ball Super was supposed to come back in July or whether it's coming back later this year, it's going to come back sometime in 2020, maybe even in 2021, that is besides the point. The realistic situation is that Dragon Ball Super is going to come back at some point. And we're probably going to get not just the series, but Dragon Ball Heroes is probably going to continue for the foreseeable future, and more movies are along the way at some point as well. Dragon Ball is just way too popular for Toei to give up on it entirely, right? So we're not entirely sure when it's coming back, but we all know it's going to. It's the worst kept secret, and people who rant and rave about whether or not it's ever coming back or not, I just never really take those people seriously. Now, whether you take an announced date or at least speculation on when it's coming back seriously, I mean, that's up to you, but I'm pretty sure we're all in agreement that it's coming back. We're just not entirely sure when at this point. All of this being said, though, you guys saw the title, you saw the thumbnail. Today we're talking about Dragon Ball Super. And whether or not, when it finally does come back, is it going to be as big as the original run? Will it be bigger? Will it be less big? How toxic is the fandom going to be? And, I've been a part of this fandom, at least the Dragon Ball Super fandom, on the social media platforms as YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and all this other stuff for a while now. And I have to tell you, it felt, maybe because I wasn't so inundated with it, maybe I didn't have as many people talking about it at that point, maybe it's because so many people, when Dragon Ball Super was on in a real and legitimate way, were so excited about it. It was this recency bias where everyone thought, even though it wasn't as good quality-wise as Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z, a lot of people were comparing it to quality of GT, maybe just a little bit above GT, if not below. Everyone was still excited week to week, right? We were all wanting to see what happens next. There was no real manga to place what was happening in the series, so it was always something new, original, and exciting, even if not a lot of stuff happened within that episode. And there was a lot of curveballs in there. But as it started slowing down, as Dragon Ball Super began winding down the Tournament of Power, as it began to get to the point where we all knew that it was not going to return after that arc was done, things started to change. People started to get a lot more negative about their experience with it, even though at the time they were very excited. They loved talking about it. They liked to hear the news, and everyone was waiting for it on the edge of their seat every single week, regardless of the quality, as I said. But a lot of people looked at it with, that wasn't really worth it, and I feel like they duped us, right? I had this nostalgia for Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z when I was younger, and I watched this show thinking I was going to relive that. And while you were at the time, you don't look back on it with fondness. Personally, I think that's because a lot of people watch Dragon Ball Super and don't experience it the same way that I did. And I understand that. Like, a lot of people don't have YouTube channels. They don't have Twitter accounts and stuff where they go out and build a little community and experience this piece of art in a different way than when they were as a child. If you're watching it week to week or day to day, whatever you're doing in order to catch up the same way you did as a child, to me, that was never going to be enough. That was going to be disappointing because you're not approaching the material in a new and interesting way. This time around, I was talking to friends. I was making friendships and connections and stuff. I was doing something that I wanted to do, and I was thinking about it much more critically. Some people say way too critically, but I was thinking about it much more critically than I did for Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball when I first saw that, or maybe even Dragon Ball GT, right? Like, I was never really thinking about Dragon Ball the same way as I was for Dragon Ball Super, and that was because I had this channel. I wanted to talk about Dragon Ball in a new and interesting way. But by the time Dragon Ball Super ended and everyone started looking back on it and getting more negative about it and just thinking that the time they spent was wasted, it kind of feels like a lot of people feel that way, at least. I'm wondering if that negative reaction is going to carry over to when Dragon Ball Super finally does come back. Of course, it's completely reasonable, and I can imagine that even the people who do not like Dragon Ball Super will come back and experience this new Dragon Ball Super, or whatever they end up calling it, with the exact same excitement and the exact same fever pitch attitude that we did with Dragon Ball Super. I wouldn't be at all surprised. But when you think about it, because of Dragon Ball Super's success, and because of so many people that it brought in, people who are willing to watch the sub now than were when Dragon Ball Super first began. I mean, it really started picking up around the Future Trunks arc, but then exploded during the Tournament of Power with people who are watching it week to week, who caught up, and just in general, people who have caught up on Dragon Ball Super, at least with the English dub, and don't want to be behind the next time it comes back. I mean, the fandom probably will be, if not the exact same size, then bigger than it was before, but you're still going to have people who watch it and are there just to criticize it and just to go after people who enjoy it for what it is, without really focusing on the fact that it was never going to be anything like you remember it as a child, right? So I'm wondering if Toei, taking this long of a hiatus, putting Dragon Ball on the back burner and allowing people enough time to go back and look at those last couple years when Dragon Ball Super was new. They were retelling movie stories, they were doing their own arcs, and they were trying to do it week to week, even though they had so much problems with it, especially at the beginning. I'm wondering if a lot of people are going to go back, think about that experience, and then bring that attitude to Dragon Ball Super's return in a very negative way that ends up destroying the fandom, or at least make it harder to enjoy this new iteration of Dragon Ball Super when it finally returns. Or if those people who didn't like it simply won't watch it at all. And Dragon Ball at that point, because Dragon Ball Super was not as good as so many people wanted it to be, will never be the same again. Because they took that hiatus. Because people really got a chance to think about their experience with the series now as they're older much more critically, and they don't have nostalgia goggles on, that really helped drive the success of that continuation, which was Dragon Ball Super. I'm not entirely sure there. I have no idea. I wanted to make this video just so I can talk to you guys about this. Like, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that Toei's kind of dropped the ball with Dragon Ball Super? Do you feel like they shouldn't have let it sit on the shelf for this long? Or do you think it's going to come back bigger and better than ever? So tell me about that in the comment section below. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. And also, guys, go down to the description section below, hit that link, and go follow me on Twitter. I'm always on Twitter. I'm there every single day, willing and ready to talk to you guys about Dragon Ball, anything else I cover on this channel, or my other channel like The Walking Dead, Saw content, horror-related movie content, box office stuff, or just having a general conversation. As I've always said, it's so much easier to talk to me on Twitter than it is to talk to me on any platform because it's almost instantaneous. It's like a text, guys. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, hope everyone's having a fantastic day. It's been real.